So the baby stops breathing, and instead of calling for help, they walked out and said nothing can be done. Who already decided that and why?
His chest isn't moving! Do something! I screamed, gripping my baby as the monitor stuttered beside me. I'm Mary Winston, standing in a hospital room with my newborn in my arms, and my parents already halfway to the door. When your husband wakes up, he can deal with this, my dad said, not even looking back. My husband was in a coma upstairs, and my baby was right here, not breathing. My mom barely glanced at him. There's nothing we can do. They left me there, alone, while he faded in my arms. So I stopped begging and made one call. And seconds later, the door opened. Two uniformed men walked in. My father froze, not startled, frozen. Like he'd just seen something he didn't expect to ever walk into this room. The taller of the two stepped forward first, eyes scanning everything, the monitor, my baby in my arms, then landing directly on my father. "Mr. Winston?" he said, calm but firm. My dad didn't answer right away. His hand tightened on the door handle like he was deciding whether to leave anyway. "This isn't necessary," he muttered finally, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "We were just—" "Sir," the second man cut in, stepping slightly to block the doorway. "We need you to stay." My mother's expression shifted for the first time, just a flicker, but I caught it. Not grief, not fear for the baby, worry. I adjusted my grip on my son, my hands shaking as I tried to feel anything, any movement, any sign. "Please," I said, my voice breaking now, not at them, but at the situation spiraling around me. "He's not breathing." The taller officer glanced at me, then at the monitor, then back at my father. "When was medical staff last called into this room?" he asked. No one answered, because no one had. Minutes. It had been minutes. My chest tightened as that realization hit harder than anything else. My parents hadn't just accepted this, they hadn't even tried to stop it. "We were handling it," my father said quickly, stepping forward now, trying to regain control. "There's no need to escalate." "Handling what?" I snapped, my voice sharper than I expected. "You were leaving!" Silence filled the room again, but it felt different now, heavier, like something was shifting underneath everything I thought I understood. The second officer pulled out a small notepad. "Ma'am," he said to me gently, "did anyone explain your child's current medical status to you?" I stared at him. "No," I said, because they hadn't. Not really, not clearly, just vague words, soft tones, closed conversations I wasn't part of. The officer nodded once, slow, deliberate, then looked back at my father. And that's when my dad said something that made my stomach drop. She wasn't supposed to be involved in that decision. My father had never said anything like that in front of me before, and the moment it left his mouth, I knew he hadn't meant to. "What decision?" I asked immediately, my voice low but sharp, cutting through the room. He didn't answer. Instead, he adjusted his sleeve like this was a meeting, like he could smooth this over the same way he always did, quietly, confidently, without anyone questioning him. "We've already spoken to the doctors," he said, redirecting, his tone flattening into that controlled, practiced calm. "Everything that needed to be decided has been decided." My grip tightened around my baby. "You don't get to decide anything," I shot back. "I'm his mother." My mother finally stepped in, her voice softer but no less dismissive. "Mary, you're overwhelmed. You haven't slept. Lucas is upstairs in critical condition." "Don't," I cut her off. "Don't tell me what I am right now." Because I knew what I felt, and this wasn't confusion. This was something being kept from me. The taller officer shifted his stance slightly, his attention still fixed on my father. "Sir, we're going to need some clarification regarding your involvement in the patient's care decisions." My father exhaled slowly, irritation slipping through now. "I'm her father. Her husband is incapacitated. I stepped in where necessary." "That doesn't automatically grant authority," the officer replied. A pause, small, tight, dangerous. Then my father said, "It does when proper documentation is in place." The words landed hard. Documentation? My stomach twisted. I hadn't signed anything. Not for this. Not for Noah. I looked at my mother. What is he talking about? She didn't meet my eyes. She didn't. Because in that silence, something cracked wide open. If there was documentation, then someone had signed something, and I hadn't. So who did? Answer me, I said, louder now, my voice shaking as the weight of that question settled in. What did you sign? Neither of them spoke. The second officer stepped forward, his tone no longer neutral. We'll ask again. Who authorized the medical directive placed on this infant? My father's jaw tightened. I did what was necessary. That's not what he asked, I snapped. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely hear the monitor anymore. What directive? The taller officer turned to me, his voice steady, precise. Ma'am, a do not resuscitate order was filed for your child approximately 20 minutes ago.
How does a DNR get signed without the mother knowing? And why do they seem so calm?
Everything in me went still. A what? The words barely came out. No one rushed to correct him. No one said it was a mistake. I looked down at my baby, his face pale, his body too quiet, and then back at my parents. You tried to let him die? My voice cracked on the last word. It wasn't like that, my mother said quickly, stepping closer, her composure slipping. The doctor said the chances were low, Mary. We didn't want him to suffer. You didn't want to wait, I cut in. You didn't want to try. My father stepped in again, more forceful now. You were not in a condition to make that call. Someone had to be rational. Rational. I felt something inside me snap. I am his mother, I said, each word deliberate. You don't get to decide when he stops breathing. The officer didn't interrupt this time. He just watched my father carefully, then asked the question that changed everything. Under what authority did you sign that order, sir? A beat passed. Then my father said, temporary medical proxy. My breath caught, because I never gave that. And judging by the way the officer's expression hardened, he already knew that too. Sir, he said, voice dropping, we're going to need proof of that authorization. My father didn't reach for anything, didn't explain, didn't move. He just glanced at the door, like he was thinking about leaving anyway. He moved. Not fast, but enough. A single step toward the door like he could still walk out of this and make it disappear. The second officer shifted instantly, planting himself between my father and the exit. Sir, I wouldn't do that. The tone wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. My father stopped. For a second, no one spoke. The only sound was the uneven beeping behind me, my baby still in my arms, still fighting for something no one else in this room had tried to protect. Mary, my mother said quietly, reaching for me now like she could still smooth this over. You have to understand, we were thinking long term. The doctor said there could be complications, severe ones, lifelong care, suffering. Stop, I said, pulling back from her touch. Just stop. Because now it was lining up. We handled it. Every time they told me not to worry. Every form they rushed past me. I looked straight at my father. You didn't just sign something, did you? He didn't answer. My chest tightened. You used my name. Silence. The taller officer spoke into his radio, low and controlled. We need administration and legal down here. Possible forged consent and unauthorized DNR. Forged. The word hung in the air like a verdict. You had no right, I said, my voice shaking now, anger bleeding through the fear. None. I had every right to protect this family, he snapped back, composure finally cracking. You're not thinking about what this would do to you, financially, mentally. This isn't about money, I shouted, but the look on his face said it was. Before I could say anything else, the door burst open. A nurse rushed in, eyes wide, already reaching for my baby. Why hasn't resuscitation been started? She demanded. No one answered. She didn't wait. Give him to me now. I hesitated for half a second, then handed him over. She moved fast, calling out for support as she checked him. Then, suddenly, wait, he's responding. Everything in the room stopped, because the baby they decided wasn't worth saving was still alive. He's got a pulse, faint, but it's there. We're not losing him. The nurse didn't slow down as she moved, already calling for backup as she rushed Noah out of my arms and onto a mobile unit. Another team flooded in behind her. Oxygen, monitors, controlled urgency replacing the stillness my parents had left behind. DNR is void, one of them said sharply. This child is being treated. I stood there, frozen, my arms suddenly empty, but for the first time, not helpless. Alive. He was alive. Down the hall, everything split in two directions at once. Noah was taken straight into neonatal intensive care, a full team working on him within seconds. The door shut behind them, leaving me staring through the glass, watching machines breathe with him until his chest started moving on its own. Behind me, the situation with my parents unraveled just as fast. Hospital administration arrived, then legal, then more security, documents were pulled, signatures examined, access logs reviewed. It didn't take long. The forms granting temporary medical proxy, signed under my name, had inconsistencies. Timestamps didn't match. Authorization codes were overridden using internal contacts my father had leaned on. He hadn't just stepped in. He forced his way in. They were trying to prevent unnecessary suffering, my mother said at one point, her voice quieter now, less certain. But no one was listening anymore, because intent didn't change what they did. Forgery, medical interference, unauthorized end-of-life directive, words that sounded clinical, but carried weight the moment they were spoken out loud. My father stopped arguing when they told him there would be a formal investigation. He didn't look at me. Not once. Hours later, I was sitting outside the NICU, staring through the glass as Noah lay inside a controlled incubator, small and fragile, but breathing, on his own. Every rise and fall of his chest felt unreal, like something that had almost been taken, not by chance, not by fate, but by decision. I felt someone sit down a few chairs away. I didn't turn. I thought I was helping, my mother said quietly. I kept my eyes forward. You decided his life wasn't worth the risk. Silence. Days passed. The hospital barred both of them from visiting. My request, enforced without hesitation. The investigation moved forward. Charges were filed. My father's professional reputation, built over decades, collapsed in days once it became public. People don't recover from something like that. And I didn't try to stop it, because while everything fell apart around them, something held steady for me. I sat between two rooms now. Upstairs, Lucas, still unconscious, still fighting. And here, Noah, alive. I reached into the incubator one evening, resting my finger gently against his tiny hand. He curled around it without thinking. Instinct, fight, presence. No signatures. No decisions made behind my back. Just him and me. And this time, no one was speaking for us.
Now think about it. How many decisions like that get signed without the right person in the room, and no one ever gets to question who actually made them?